Hello and how's it going? Zach D Productions here, and I am here for my end of the year list 2022. I'll be going over what I think were the best rock and metal albums of the year 2022. I'll be going over 6 of my favorite albums of the year. Now, I could do a top 5 or even a top 10. Maybe not a top 10, I think that'd be a little difficult actually, but I just wanted to narrow this list down to a top 6. So I thought that 2022 has been a solid year for music overall. I mean, in my opinion, it wasn't one of the best years for music, but obviously there's been some very good album releases of this year, and we'll be going over some of those in this video. Now, before we get started, I do have a couple honorable mentions I do want to name here. Now, one of those honorable mentions is 3 Days Grace's newest album, Explosions. Now, if you have listened to this album, whether you're a casual fan or a hardcore fan, I'm sure you could pretty much see why this is only an honorable mention because, yeah, it's definitely not one of their strongest albums. In fact, I do think it's one of their weakest. And I know that I'm not alone on that. There's other people saying that as well. Like, even people that are bigger 3 Days Grace fans than I am are even saying that, yeah, this is one of their weakest albums. This is the third album with Matt Walst, their current vocalist, and I really don't know what this band has to do to get back on track. I really don't, because these last few 3 Days Grace records, they're really not cutting it. They're really not. I mean, again, I don't know what they have to do. I don't know if they really do have to get Adam back in the band. I don't know if that really is the only way to get them back on track. I'm not even sure at this point. But, you know, even in saying that, I still think that there are some good songs on Explosions. Obviously, the album isn't terrible. I wouldn't say the album's terrible. I mean, obviously, it's made the honorable mentions. And if it was terrible, I wouldn't even place it in the honorable mentions. It's not terrible. I wouldn't consider it hot garbage or anything. There is some highlights. There is. I do like So-Called Life, I Am the Weapon, A Scar is Born, and Chain of Abuse. I think those are probably my favorites on the album. I mean, Chain of Abuse probably has one of my favorite choruses on the album. I really do like that chorus. It's not overly complex. It is more straightforward, kind of straight to the point, but for what it's worth, I think it's pretty good chorus. But obviously, yes, there is some good tracks on the album, but nothing mind-blowing or anything, you know, so yeah, I mean, it's just a decent album, I think. So 3 Days Grace's latest album, Explosions, is one of the honorable mentions. Now, the other honorable mention is The Devil Wears Prada's newest album, Color Decay. Now, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that I put this in the honorable mentions. I'm surprised that it's at least good enough to make the honorable mentions because, well, if you weren't around then, I said before that their last album, The Act, was the worst album of the year that album came out. So it is impressive that The Devil Wears Prada managed to come out with something that was actually better than Next Time. And I knew right when I heard one of the singles, I think Time was the single, that, yeah, this is definitely going to be better than The Act. Because all this album needed was one song in order for it to be better than The Act. Because, in my opinion, there were no good songs on The Act. So, just one good song would have been enough to get them on the right track. You know, get them basically on a path to a better direction, basically. And I do like the song Time, definitely one of the highlights on the album, very memorable, pretty emotional sounding, you know, and it does sound like a Devil Wears Prada song that I would have, like, binged on back in the day, back when I did listen to these guys a lot, because I will be honest, the Devil Wears Prada is a band that kind of did fall off for me, but I don't think that they're bad or anything, but I don't know, I kind of fell off their fan base, but of course, whenever they come out with new albums, for whatever reason, I'm still interested in checking them out, you know. And I think that's the case with any band that you have nostalgia feelings for, you know, even if you fell off of them, you'll probably always be interested in what they come out with next. But yeah, So, The Devil Wears Prada's newest album, Color Decay, Yeah, it's a step up from their last album, but even in saying that, I still don't think the album is mind-blowing or anything or amazing. Obviously, it's only in the honorable mentions. There's a number of skippable tracks on this album, which is one of the main reasons why it didn't make it on the actual uh, end of the year list. But either way, those are my 2 honorable mentions, so let's go ahead and get into the actual top 6 best albums of 2022 based on my opinion. Now, if your opinion is different than mine, that's fine with me. And your album of the year might not even be on this list. That's okay. But this is just my list, of course. So let's go ahead and get into what is at number 6. Number 6, I gotta go with Def Leppard's latest album, Diamond Star Halos. Pretty good album, I'd say. Now, I do think it is a step down from their last album, but even in saying that, I still think the album is pretty good. There is some good songs on the album, some rockin' songs on this album for sure. I mean, you got Take What You Want, Kick, SOS Emergency, and one of my other favorites being From Here to Eternity. I really like the melody in that song. Yeah, at this point you can tell that Def Leppard are kind of slowly running out of material to write, you could say. Now, the material on here is good, don't get me wrong, but again, it's a step down from their last album, and it just makes you wonder what ideas they have planned next, if they even plan to work on another album. Who even knows at this point? But either way, a really good rock album, and I'd say when it comes to rock, yeah, maybe one of the best albums of the year when it comes to rock music. So, Def Leppard's Diamond Star Halos. So, what's at number 5 for me? I gotta go with Korn's newest album, Requiem. I do think it's a step down from their last album, like with Def Leppard's latest. Korn's last album was The Nothing, which I thought was actually one of their best albums. But then they came out with this, which is still good, but it's clearly a step down. It clearly is. Now, I know that some people say that this is Korn's worst album, which I do not agree with. I do think it's a good album, actually. I do like the majority of the songs on this album. I mean, I do like Forgotten, Let the Dark Do the Rest, Start the Healing, and of course, Worst is on its way. Really good songs for sure. Of course, kind of accessible sounding. You know, I don't think it's as heavy as The Nothing, but still pretty good album, I'd say. And I do know that, of course, Korn is not done yet. You know, they probably have more material on the way. So I hope whatever they come out with next is a step up from this. Because even though I do like this album, and it is a very good album, I do hope for something better. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's at number 5 for me and not, say, number 2 or anything. Because even though it is a good album, it's not perfect, and there are obviously things about it that that kind of pale in comparison to other material in Korn's discography. But still, for what it is, it's a very good album. Very good one. So, Korn's album, Requiem. So, at number 4, are we at number 4? Yeah, I believe so. I gotta go with Soulfly's latest album, Totem. Now, this album, it did receive fairly mixed reviews. You know, there's some people that have said that this is one of Soulfly's weakest albums, maybe even their weakest. I don't know about that. Even though that is the case, if let's say that is the case, I still think it is a very good album for sure. You know, it still sounds like Soulfly. You know, they still got it in them. Max Cavalera sounds very good on here. The rest of the guys, very talented and everything. They just know how to create really brutal and aggressive music. And yeah, a lot of great tracks on this album for sure. Superstition, Scouring the Vial, Filth Upon Filth, Rotten Pain, The Damage Done, the title track, Spirit Animal. A lot of really great songs on here for sure. I mean, really, I don't think you can go wrong with any of the songs on here. Now, yeah, there are songs better than others, but that's what you get on any album. But the album, it still sounds like Soulfly. Now, I do think that the last few Soulfly albums have been very good. And this one is without exception. So great album, really good one. So it's got to make number 4 for me. So Soulfly's latest album, Totem. Definitely check it out if you haven't checked it out yet. All right, so at number 3, I got to go with Voivod's latest album, Synchro Anarchy. Voivod, I do think, is one of the most unique bands in metal, at least from what I've heard. Either way, definitely a very unique band in the metal genre. They're kind of like a mix of thrash metal and progressive metal. It's just very cool and unique stuff for sure. So, yeah. Really good album right here for sure. And I knew right when I listened to this album, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is one of the best albums of the year. I mean, it made it to the top 3 for sure. And honestly, these top 3, they could be interchangeable for me. They really could. You know, there's really no wrong answer here if you wanted to flip-flop these around, you know. Really great album for sure. Of course, you have Paranormalium, the title track, Sleeves Off, very good tracks for sure. Many other great songs on here as well. But yeah, very interesting and complex music. Lots of skilled musicianship, like what you get on a lot of Voivod material, but great album. Really good one. Definitely worth checking out. If you want to check out one of the best albums of the year, check out this one. If you want something that's a little more unique, check out this one. So, Voivod's latest album, Synchro Anarchy. Alright, so at number 2. Now, number 2 and number 1, I was really trying to figure out which one of these I wanted to be number 1, because these top 2 especially, it's really close. I mean, honestly, when it comes to the top 3 even, not much separates them. But at number 2, I gotta go with Megadeth's latest album, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead, which honestly I do think is a step up from their last album, Dystopia. Megadeth are obviously legends in thrash metal. They're part of the Big Four, and of course, if you're a metal fan, how is Megadeth's latest album not on your end of the year list? I mean, come on now. Great album, really great album for sure. Now, I don't know right off the bat why I would say I like this album more than their last album, Dystopia. I just feel like musically it has more to offer. That's really the thing that I have to say about it. I think that's really the only thing I could say about it when comparing it to Dystopia. Now, Dystopia is a great album for sure. I think at the time it was their best in years. But I do think that they did manage to step it up with this album. But yeah, great songs on here for sure. This album shows that Megadeth, you know, given how long they've been around, they're still capable of putting out great music. Really great songs on here for sure. The title track, Night Stalkers, Dogs of Chernobyl, which is a more unique song on the album. Mission to Mars, I think, is kind of a cool song. You also got Soldier On and We'll Be Back. Now, We'll Be Back probably is my favorite of the singles on this album, but lots to like with this album for sure, and I wouldn't be surprised if this album also made a lot of people's top 3 or top 5 at the very least. But yeah, either way, great album for sure. Now, yeah, Dave Mustaine, you can definitely hear the aging in his vocals on this album, but I think he still sounds all right. Still sounds all right on this album. So, Megadeth's latest album, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead. Now, at number 1, honestly, I'm very surprised that this album made number 1. I've been returning to this album non-stop, and that pretty much is how it always is every time this band comes out with a new album, at least, you know, in the first few months or so after releasing a new album. But either way, my album of the year has to be Demon Hunter's latest album, Exile. Now, before you hit me with your no surprise there, or your, hey, we've seen that coming, or hey, who would have seen that coming, right? Because obviously you guys know that I do have some bias for Demon Hunter. They were one of the first metal bands that I got into, And I feel like some people might get the wrong idea and might think that I'm just placing this album at number 1 just because it's Demon Hunter alone. No other reason than that, basically. But I'm going to give you a little memory refreshment here. If you have been around to see my end of the year list for 2017 and 2019, you would know that Demon Hunter did not make my number 1 for those lists. Now, War and Peace, I probably would have placed higher nowadays if I were to re-rank 2019's lineup nowadays. Yeah, I probably would have it higher, but either way, I would say that there is more than just the reason that this is Demon Hunter to why it's my album of the year. Again, I've been returning to it a lot, and this is without a doubt Demon Hunter's most unique album in their discography. Without a doubt. This is, of course, a concept album, and it's something that apparently they wanted to do this time, and I would say it works for them. It does. Now, when you listen to the deluxe edition of Exile, you definitely get a more solidified concept album experience than you would on the standard edition. But the standard edition, I mean, obviously, no matter what version of this album you listen to, it's still great. The songs on this album are just fantastic. You even got some great guest appearances on this album from Max Cavalera from Soulfly. You got Richie from Judas Priest, and you also got Tom S. England as well. I mean, really, really great stuff. Really great stuff for sure. And Ryan, he sounds great on this album. Really great vocal deliveries from him. And I do think that this album does feature Yogi's best drumming in Demon Hunter. But yeah, if I had to name some favorites, oh gosh, I think all the songs on this album are great. I do like Defense Mechanism, which is featuring Max Cavalera. Master, which might even go down as one of my favorite Demon Hunter tracks, to be honest. I love that song a lot. It's kind of a unique song for them, too. Structurally, vocally, it's kind of unique. Silence the World is also good. I do like Devotion. And Along the Way, which is an 8-minute epic, and it's an awesome song. It really is. The guitar work on that song really does stand out to me, but yeah, as well as Ryan's vocals, of course. Everything about that song is fantastic. So Demon Hunter's latest album, Exile, it's got to be my number 1, and it's their most different album in their discography, and definitely a unique album in their discography too. And I would say if you have not listened to this album, definitely check it out, because I know that there's going to be some people that will pass up this album, you know. But yeah, really great album for sure. So that's my list. That is my end of the year list 2022. Let me know what you think. What are your favorite albums of 2022? Would you say that any of these albums would make your end of the year list of 2022? Feel free to let me know. So on that note, thanks so much for watching, and have a good one.